What if the key to figuring all this stuff out, life, happiness, peace of mind, wasn't some big secret, but just a few simple shifts in how we look at things? Today, we're going to dive into this sort of guide to yourself. It's a collection of really powerful ideas that can change how you see the world and, maybe more importantly, how you see the person staring back at you in the mirror. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're starting with the absolute bedrock, the most fundamental relationship you will ever have. This idea right here is the foundation for everything else we're about to explore. Because, look, before we can even talk about finding meaning out in the world or trying to define what happiness is, we have to start with the lens we see it all through, our relationship with ourselves. So, our first stop on this journey is to actually look outwards. We're going to explore a wider world. But we're not talking about some far-off, exotic place. Nope, we're looking for meaning right here, in the little moments that happen every single day. It's a question a lot of us ask, right? Is there something bigger out there? Some kind of higher presence? Well, the perspective we're looking at today suggests the answer isn't tucked away in some ancient book or on a remote mountaintop. It's right here, right in front of us. And this is where we find it. See, this greater presence, it's not some distant, complicated idea. You find it when you're just floored by a beautiful sunset. You see it in the pure, unfiltered joy of a kid playing. You feel it in a simple, unexpected act of kindness from a stranger. And maybe the most important one, you find it in those moments when you connect with the very best part of yourself. And this quote, it really puts that whole idea into practice. Think about it. If you believe there's a spark of something divine in everyone, it completely changes how you interact with the world, doesn't it? All of a sudden, every single person you meet is a potential connection to something bigger. It makes compassion not just a nice thing to do, but, well, an essential way of being. All right, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about observing the world, but now let's get into how we actually interpret it. How do we build the very reality that we experience every day? Okay, this next idea is a big one. The universe, nature, it doesn't have a built-in moral code. It doesn't operate on right and wrong. Nature just is. All those labels we use, fair, unjust, good, bad, those are the rules that we invent for the human game we're playing. And here's where it gets really interesting. We all have our own internal logic, right? Our own justifications for why we do what we do. But the thing you have to grasp is that the person on the other side of an argument, they are running the exact same mental software. They also believe 100% that they are justified. And that's how two totally conflicting realities can exist at the exact same time. And here's the kicker. Whatever standard of judgment you set for the world, eventually, the world is going to apply that same standard right back at you. The rules you write for others are the very same rules you have to live by. Which, of course, brings us right back to where we started, that all-important relationship with yourself. Because these rules of fairness, of justification, of progress, they apply most powerfully inside our own heads. How often does this happen? Seriously, we feel stuck, like we're not getting anywhere. And what do? We blame our energy, our circumstances. We say, oh, I'm just too tired. But this reflection suggests that more often than not, the real roadblock is in our mind. It's our own limiting beliefs that are holding us back. I love this. This is such a healthier way to think about trying. We get so hung up on getting one specific result, but what if we saw every single effort, even the ones that totally fail, as just a piece of data that helps us get to a better overall outcome later on? It's not a failure. It's just a course correction. And that leads to this, a total game changer for how you can think about success. Victories, they're external. They depend on other people, on circumstances, and honestly, they're fleeting. But improvements, that's all internal. That's just about being a little bit better today than you were yesterday. And that is a game you can always win. Okay, let's tackle the big one, happiness. We're going to try and break down what it actually is and how it works, almost like it's a science experiment. We have all been there. You get the promotion, you hit that goal, and you are on top of the world for a little while. Or you have a setback, and it feels like the end of the world. Again, for a little while. Why don't those feelings stick around forever? Well, the answer is this fascinating concept called emotional mean reversion. Just think of your emotional state like a thermostat in your house. It has a default setting, your personal baseline. A huge success can crank the heat way up, and a major failure can drop it down into the cold. But your mind is designed to, eventually, always bring that temperature back to your set point. It's what keeps us stable, but it's also why those intense feelings never last. So if we get a little technical about it, happiness isn't a destination. It's not a place you arrive at and then just live there forever. It's a function of change. It is the feeling you get when things are actively getting better. It's not about being at the peak of the mountain. It's about the feeling of the climb itself. And you guessed it, sadness is just the other side of that coin. It's the feeling we get when things that make us uncomfortable are on the rise. It's the feeling of the downward trend. They are two sides of the very same coin, and they are both defined by motion. So what's the big takeaway here? It's this: happiness is relative. It's not absolute. You can't have constant happiness, because if you did, you wouldn't even recognize it anymore. It would just be your new normal. We need the contrast. We need the struggle and the sadness to even know what happiness feels like. It's just like needing the darkness to appreciate the light. So, if happiness is just this temporary upswing on an emotional roller coaster, is that really the ultimate goal? This final section suggests there might be something else to aim for, a state of being called serenity. And what's wild is that the path to this deep mental state starts with something surprisingly physical. It begins with this really simple piece of wisdom. Don't waste food, sure, but more importantly, don't treat your own body like it's a trash can. The idea is that serenity has to be built on a foundation of self-respect. If you can't even honor your own physical self, how are you supposed to cultivate a peaceful mind? And from that foundation of self-respect, the path forward is actually about looking outward. The logic is pretty simple. The constant chase for your own personal happiness, well, it's a self-focused and kind of turbulent ride. But by shifting your focus to selflessness and kindness for others, you kind of step off that roller coaster entirely. True peace is found when you get out of your own way. And this is the destination, serenity. Now, it's really important to get this. It is not just a super high level of happiness. It's a state that exists completely beyond that whole spectrum of happy and sad, of success and failure. It's a deep inner peace that isn't getting yanked around by what's happening on the outside. And so we're left with this one last question to think about. We spend so much of our lives chasing that temporary high of happiness. But if that feeling, by its very nature, can't last, maybe we've been aiming for the wrong target all along. Maybe the real goal isn't the peak of the mountain, but finding a peaceful plateau that lasts forever.